Ivorian president, Ghanaian president, Nigerian president, when you go to the United Nations to speak, your words are empty drums. You don't have any consequences. You can't do anything. You are not a nuclear power. You cannot put sanction on anybody. You don't have any industrial power to do anything. So when you speak, the whole world do not regard you. They do not take you seriously. That's why the Omicron virus, Omicron variant that was discovered in South Africa, Europeans did what they could do best. Put those Africans in the cage and lock them up. Shut down, suspend all flight. Let's keep them one side a bit before we will think what to do next. They take action against you without even thinking. When they deal with Africans, they don't have second thought because you are inconsequential. Okay? So I remember somebody told me, that, Black Americans suffer in the United States a lot. They've been shut down the street, a lot of things happening. When is it going to end? I told them, why is it that they are not shooting Chinese on the street in America? Why is it that they are not shooting Indians on the street in America? You know why? Because there are consequences when you do it. In every society, it's always about consequences. When you are inconsequential, then you become vulnerable. When people can do something to you and there is no retaliation, then you become vulnerable. If I can walk to your house and take everything in your house and you are not going to shake or shoot a single bullet, then I will do it anytime I wish to. But if there's deterrent, I see gun to your door, I see that if I touch you, there will be consequences, I will stop. I will not do it. So if you see African being maltreated, there's anti-African sentiment around the world. They call it negrophobia or whatever it is in Europe, in Asia. It's because our countries are weak, our countries are fragile, and we are inconsequential on the international stage. It's very important to stress this because what happened to South Africa is a lesson to African leaders that anytime Europe wishes to shut down Africa, they will. Anytime Asia wishes to shut down Africa, they will. But Africa can do nothing to anybody. And it's very simple, even on the international politics, if you observe, they had Russia-Africa summit. A single president in Russia will summon 52 head of states in Africa, and they will go for a meeting. They have French-Africa summit. A French president will summon all the head of states in Africa, and they will go and sit there and drink tea. Chinese president will summon an entire continent, and they will go and sit there and be drinking tea. They say they are educated people. UK will summon the entire continent. When will an African leader summon all European leaders? Which African leader have the ball to summon European leaders to come for a meeting in his capital? It has never happened in our lifetime. That's the power I play there. That's where they show you, they demonstrate to you that you are powerless. Recently, French president called for a meeting he called it Africa-France Summit, where he summoned all the youth of Africa from Francophone country to come and discuss the future of African youth in relationship with France. My question to you, which African leader can summon European youth? Can a Chinese president summon European youth to discuss their future? Can an African president summon American youth to discuss their future? Are we unconscious? Does Emmanuel Macron have the authority, the morality to address African youth? No, he does not have the authority. Does he have the morality? No, he doesn't have the morality. Going to the history of France, what he has done to Africa, he does not have the morality to do so. Does he have the competence? If he has said no, he doesn't even have the competence because he doesn't know our culture. He doesn't know our reality of what we are going through, our struggle. He doesn't know it. He only knows it from the European perspective. So when he's looking at us from the European angle, colonial masters versus the colonized. So people who should speak to us are people who have the authority, people who have the morality, and people who have the competence to do so. But Africans always make themselves vulnerable. They make themselves weak in the international stage. That's why South Africa is treated like this. That's why they have been isolated by the rest of the world in seconds. After they announced the Omicron virus, the whole world said, let's shut down our border. What does South Africa have to offer besides gold and diamond? And we will get it anyway. They don't produce anything that we might need tomorrow morning. We manufacture things. They needed more from us. All we do is get a raw material in the black market, and then we ship things back to them and they buy it. They have nothing to do. They don't have a power in the the Security Council of the United Nations. They don't have veto power. They don't have nothing. There's nothing. The entire continent is just a one big village. This is it, guys. And this is why we're going to suffer, because we have leaders who are unconscious, because we have leaders who don't understand international politics. We have leaders who do not have the ball to challenge the war. They think that it's always okay for us to be at the receiving end. They don't see us becoming global leaders. It's not important to them for us to aspire to be leaders of the world. We should always be controlled by other people. And the consequences will be you will be abused, rejected, overlooked, and disrespected. And that's what happened to Johannesburg. I will take a short break. And when we come back, we have a lot here to discuss. We have one more question. And we're going to also allow you to, in the comment section, to ask questions, or if you want to call in to share light on this topic, we will also give you the opportunity to do so. So let's take a short break. We'll be back, ladies and gentlemen.
At Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Jack.
Thank you for watching Focus on Liberia. This is Roundtable Africa. I am Sekeu, Kelleh, your host, and we are discussing the topic, is South Africa being punished for discovering Omicron, the new concerning variant of COVID-19? And here we are already, we've discussed a lot of points here already, what the virus is and then this variant, what is capable of the strength of this variant. We already talked about it. And then what scientists know so far about this Omicron variant of COVID-19 virus in South Africa, how rapidly it's spreading. We've discussed that. But what we're really dealing with here today, how the international community reacted to the news that broke that South Africa, this scientists discovered the COVID-19 variant called Omicron. The first reaction of the Western world was to shut their borders, suspend flight to South Africa, isolate the country, and then the country is going to suffer massively economically. And that's why we are discussing this topic. Why did the international community react the way they did? They didn't do that to France. In the UK, another variant was discovered there. They didn't do that to UK. Why South Africa? Why the entire Southern Africa shut down? Will they eventually lead to shutting down the entire African continent? Are we going to be isolated by the rest of the world because just a little variant, one or two variants discovered in Africa? Why most of this pandemic throughout the real epicenter of the pandemic is Asia and Europe, and Africa even delayed in shutting their borders, suspending flight. But when it came to this very variant, we saw how they reacted very quickly. They suspended flight and shut down their border, and we are saying why? Why should they do so? That brings us to the last question here. What lesson can African leaders learn from the latest Afrophobia that the continent is set to undertake? Well, I already mentioned a lot of that. Africa needs to learn 100 years of 500 years of colonialism and slavery is enough for us to understand how the international world works in this post-colonial state that we are in, with these borderless countries. I mean, these little countries that we live in called republic. How we are being treated by the rest of the world. We should now be able to learn our lesson, to know that our power, our real strength is within. It's not outside there. That there is no amount of help that will come from the West that will elevate Africa. There is no amount of help that you will receive from America that will eventually transform your economy. It's not going to happen. All this aid and charity that you're receiving, they are actually meant to impoverish you. They are meant to keep you where you are and never to go forward. And as long as we do not go forward to challenge the rest of the world, we will be the laughingstock in the international politics. We will be overlooked, we will be disrespected, and the rest of the world will not even think twice to isolate us anytime they want to, because we are inconsequential. So it's important for African leaders to really look inward, begin to fix our medical infrastructure, begin to invest money, put the money where their mouth is, ban this medical tourism of our elite. It's still shameful in 2021 that our leaders should travel abroad to receive medical treatment. It's really, really disheartening to see. It's like people who have no dignity and conscience. Because one thing you should know about leadership and politics is dignity. That aspect called dignity is what you should always protect. The legacy that you leave behind as a leader. So that's why in ancient time, leaders lead the battle from the front. They don't go to the back. Ethiopian leader just showed it recently. Abiy Ahmed, he's led the battle from the front. He said, I have to be to the battlefront. So when the bullet hit me, then all my generals will know that you don't fight the battle from the air-conditioned office. You fight the battle from the front. So when leaders travel for medical tourism and leave their own medical infrastructure dead, I consider it treason. They are committing treason, a high crime, because they are taking the state resources, going for their own selfish interests, and leave the population that they swore oath to protect, leave them to die at the mercy. And they say God will protect us. When COVID-19 was coming, your president in Liberia began to make music and sing songs and awareness. But if he gets sick, he will not sing songs. He will take flight, private jet straight to America to go and get treatment. He's not going to sing. He's not going to call no pastor to pray for him. He's going to fly abroad to treat himself. Like all your representatives and all your senators, that's what they do. They don't pray when they're sick. They ask you to pray. But they take flight and they go abroad to receive treatment. That's why we need to wise up. We need to hold these people accountable. They need to put their money where their mouth is. If you love this country, your children should go to school here. If you love this country, if you are sick, go to the same hospital that you say you built for us. Go get treatment there. If the hospital is so good for us, why don't you go there? If the schools you built are so good for us, why don't your children go there? It's so obvious and simple. We don't even need rocket science to know that we have been cheated, that we have been abused by our own leaders. And by abusing or they are abusing themselves because the rest of the world laugh at them. Even while they walk on red carpet, people give them all the courtesy and this gun salute when they travel abroad. In reality, they are laughing at them. Here is a leader of one of the poorest countries in the world. Then you laugh. Then they give you a seat, you sit down. Oh, here is the leader of one of the poverty-stricken nations around the world. In fact, his developmental slogan is pro-poor. Welcome, Mr. President. Then you clap. You don't have any sense. You don't have any thinking faculty that you can be better than that. You don't have to put yourself in that poverty index. You don't have to be classified by the United Nations always as poor, very poor country that need aid. Every nation, there is no magic being performed in the West There's no magic. It is people who sat down and put 1 and 2 together and make the country work. So we cannot sit down all the way and be contented with all the poverty index putting us into this bracket of poverty, very poor country, that are very fragile, and so that we can be receiving aid from United Nations. Aid has never developed any country. What develops a country is strategy, hard work, dignity, discipline of the people and their leaders, especially the political elite. They take decisions that lead the country to salvation. So we are saying what will happen, what is happening to Africa, if there's any lesson we can learn from this South African issue, is that the rest of the world do not care about you, Africa. You have nothing to offer the rest of the world other than your raw material and your natural resources. That's all the world needs from you. They don't need you for anything else. As long as you provide the raw material, as long as you are able, as long as you provide the raw materials, as long as you are able to give them free labor, they will gladly be able to call you one of them. But apart from that, they don't see you as anything. You don't have any power in the tech world. You don't have any power in the United Nations. You don't have any power in the heavyweight, when they say G20 meeting. No African country is there because you don't have anything to offer the rest of the world. So they can shut you down. They can shut you up any moment they want to. And this is very concerning. We cannot be players on the global stage where the other people do not take us seriously, where the other people don't consider our voice, where we speak and we are not being heard. That's very dangerous. That's very, very dangerous. If we are going to be partners, then we should have equal power. We should be able to have equal respect and equal position on the table. But if there's a disadvantage on one side, then we are no longer in competition. Recently, we heard that China is taking over the international airport of Uganda. Why? Because Uganda defaulted on the payment of the loan. So China will now take the airport, control the international airport of Uganda. Now, if that's already happened in Zambia, by the way, so it's going to be happening now in Uganda. In fact, in Zambia, Chinese have a police station there, so the Chinese cannot be prosecuted or arrested by Zambian police. It has to be done by Chinese police. So all over Africa, our leaders are making very crazy concessions agreements. They are giving up their sovereignty for a few dollars or to score political points against their rivals, just to prove that, oh, I was able to build 2-kilometer road. They are willing to sell the country to make a political point. And at the end of the day, when you calculate the sum total of their action, you only one word for it, that is betrayal, traitors. They betray the people, they betray this generation, they betray Africans of tomorrow, and they betray the dreams of African people or African founding fathers in the 60s. And this is the problem that we are into. And if nothing is done, we will continue to be the laughingstock of the world. The poverty headquarters, the capital of poverty in the world is in Africa. Poorest countries in the world are in Africa. The most backward nation in terms of infrastructural development, Africa. The most less educated people on the planet, Africa. How do we allow this to keep on happening century after century without taking actions? And we have leaders in office who are wearing coat suit and necktie, and they love to speak a lot on national TV. But when it comes to action, zero. So this is a lesson for us, ladies and gentlemen, that we need, our countries are not powerful. We have weak countries. In fact, for me, I always tell people, I am African and I'm Liberian by accident. And when I say I'm Liberian by accident, I mean that the country Liberia is not an imagination of Africa, African creation. It was something that was created due to situations, circumstances of Europeans' action. That's what led to a country called Liberia, Sierra Leone, Ivory Coast, Ghana. But I hope for the day when African consciousness will rise to a point where we'll create our own powerful federated state that will be powerful enough to challenge the rest of the world. But for now, we are living in little colonial territories created by white people, and managed by Negropeans who are not conscious, who are not competent to be able to lead our people. And as long as we remain in these macro little states created by colonialism, created by accident through the actions of slavery and colonialism, we will never get into the future. The future will happen when a young African leader be now design their own destiny and come together and form a federated state, a powerful state that can challenge USA, challenge Europe, challenge Asia, that will have the military and technological power and move on into the Industrial Revolution. I see us going nowhere, and we will continue to be isolated like South Africa is being isolated. South Africa is called one of the powerful industrial powerhouse of Africa. South Africa has nothing. The majority of them are poor. They live in what they call shacks, these zinc round houses. They show you beautiful picture of Johannesburg. Believe me, only white people live in those houses. The real South African, they live in slums. They are very poor in their own country. So let nobody deceive you that South Africa is anywhere. They are very poor, like any of the rest of the African countries. So something has to be done. Our leaders have to wake up. They have to be conscious. Otherwise, we will become the laughingstock of the world from century after century. I will read your comments now and see what contribution we have from other people. Then I will close this for the day. I have here, Edward said, keep the fat, bro. I couldn't continue because of bad weather. Yeah, Edward, my co-host, actually the bad weather conditions, so he could not continue with me today. Edward, I wish you well, and we'll see you next week. But I have a comment here from Kim. He said, well, all of that will stop when Africans stop worshiping white people. Definitely, when they stop worshiping white people, when they come out of mental slavery, they will definitely see it. Then Anthony C. said, excellent, fair, balance, but thought-provoking presentation with critical analysis. Thank you, Chief. And definitely we have to do this. If there's anything that we need in Africa is consciousness. You get all the education, get all the technocrat together. If you are not conscious, you don't even have the paradigm to use. You'll be working against yourself. You think you are working for your people. And while you're working against yourself, that's why consciousness paradigm, cultural paradigm is very important. You don't remove it from politics, from science. There's always a cultural paradigm in viewing things. That can take an entire lecture, I can tell you, to explain to you how Europeans use their paradigm in their educational system, in their scientific research. It is always based on their cultural paradigms. The science is there, but there is a cultural paradigm into it that will make you to make it leaning towards a certain way of understanding issue. And when you follow that cultural paradigm, you are forced to worship them. That's how the world is structured. Then you have here from someone called Truth, and very good name there. He said, no, we are not unconscious. We are a colonized people. Yeah, definitely. When you are colonized, what they do, they take away your culture, take away your consciousness. Your culture is your consciousness. It is your culture that tells you the difference between right and wrong. The conscious give you your values, your morality, your way of judging things. So if that is taken away from you, you are no longer conscious. If a lion is no longer aware that it is a lion, the lion is unconscious. As on the CSL, what is Afrophobia? Afrophobia is the fear of African or an anti-African attitude, to be against, to create that sentiment of fear against African, just like they have xenophobia, the fear of aliens or foreigners. So it's the same thing. You have Afrophobia, the resentment of fear against Africans. Is an anti-African sentiment that they are developing. Oh, this is African. Have you ever gone somewhere and you say, I'm African, and the next question that follow are ridiculous questions? Do you guys get roads? Do you guys have hospitals? Or do you guys even have airport? Do you guys have universities? That questions alone are coming from that kind of condescending way of looking at you. It's Afrophobia. We have Emmanuel Charles. He said, today's show is the best. You, Mr. Sekeu Kelleh, is the real leader. No Liberian can speak about these ills in our system like you did. We need more African leaders like you to speak. about the disadvantage of Africa is facing today. Thank you very much, Mr. Charles. It's very, very serious. Our leaders are not seeing it. The thing is about speaking good Queen's English and good French and be able to dress properly. No, the issues are there. Industrialize the country or we perish. Exporting raw material will never work. It doesn't matter who says it, whether World Bank says it, it will never work. Industry, industry, industry. Do it or we perish. Build the power plant. Let have electricity. Let have the industries. Say we are not exporting nothing until you build the factory here. Stand on your ground. If you don't do that, the industrialization will never happen and there will be no miracle in the development of African people. We have a comment here from Truth. He said, this is not about COVID. This is about geopolitical nonsense between America and China. The West and the China reporters are stating the wrong questions. Thank you for your contribution. Emmanuel Charles, again, he said, great show. All African leaders need to hear this. We have a comment here from William Dumber. He said, tell them, Sekeu, maybe if more of our live video dwell on our problems and not display their ignorance, illiteracy, stupidity, and what have you, we will be far ahead. Definitely. The people always beat around the bush. They discuss things that don't matter. Like my country, I hear people discussing pro-poor agenda. I'm not against anybody. But look, when you want, we are talking about African Renaissance, African Industrial Revolution. These are things we are talking about. We are not talking about pro-poor, not poor. Nobody is poor. People are impoverished. The philosophy itself needs to change. There are no poor people in Liberia. There are impoverished people. Impoverished by who? The economic elite, the political elite, and the system. So it's like you poor people, you kidnap people, you put them in a house and lock them up. Then you say you are creating a system to be pro imprisonment. No, free those people. Open the door. And you see they have their freedom already. These people in Liberia are not poor people. These are people on their own country, living on a rich land, full of diamond and gold, where they have everything. You impoverish them with your system. So there should be no pro-poor government. There should be economic revolution, political revolution. There should be cultural transformation. That's what you need. So your consciousness have to be going away, not a pro-poor. I see Liberia, I don't see poor people. I see impoverished people, people who have been impoverished by organized system. A system that doesn't work is what impoverished the people. So when you change that mindset, it's different. I tell you, mister, you are rich, but you don't know how to get those richer because the money is right under your feet. If I tell you that, plus I tell you are poor because your father was poor, your mother was poor, you will always remain poor unless I help you. If I say those two comments to the same person, their reaction will be different. So don't tell the people they are poor. Tell them that they were impoverished and they will wake up. Second to the last comment here, is very much so. I just got on. We'll watch again later to get the first part. Thank you, Margaret. We have another comment here from Margaret Mampu. Is exactly victims of the very system they are dying for. Thank you very much. That's it for the comment. New comments are coming in. I will not be able to read all of them. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for the show. New variants have been discovered in South Africa and it's been named by World Health Organization as Omicron coronavirus. And the rest of the world have isolated South Africa because of this variant, and it's worrying. This isolation will have economic consequences. There were social consequences as well. And we see that this isolation is going to extend to other African countries. They already done that to 8 countries. And if care is not taken, the entire African continent might be isolated by the West because a certain type of virus have been discovered. But when it was the reverse, Africa took time before they isolated the West. So that shows you the international politics, how it's being played. Weak versus the strong. The powerful versus the less powerful. The industrialized versus the poor. The non-industrialized country. First world versus third world. Are we going to remain in that bracket? Are we comfortable with that bracket? Are we going to continue with that kind of consciousness? But we'll close with this. A few years ago, I was in Europe, and I was having a discussion with my friend. He's a white American. And then there was another guy from Gambia. So 2 Africans, 1 American. And we were sitting down having tea together. And the American guy said, which country in Africa can you point to now and say this is the better one? This is the country that is doing well, that is developing. Can you point one? So I said, well, there are a few countries that are trying their best. I mentioned a few countries, and I mentioned South Africa. Then a friend of mine, the African brother who come from Gambia, said, no, South Africa is developed because there are white people. So only when you have what the number of the development you're going to have depend on the number of white people you have in your country. So if you have more white people, your country is likely to develop. If you have more black people, your country is likely to degenerate into chaos. I was shocked. And the white guy was like, really? And I stopped the Gambian guy and I told him, so you think that whiteness has something to do with development? He said, but it's obvious. Where white people are is always developed, and where black people are is always underdeveloped. So it means that the more white people you have, the more developed you're going to be. So I told him, I reject this mentality. I reject it because it has no basis in history. It has no basis in truth and reality of how the world civilization were developed. And it's a very bad way. The consciousness you have is called mental slavery and is self-destructive. And you are committing suicide right now culturally and unconsciously, and you don't realize that. I say, white people countries are developed. There is a history to it of 500 years of gap that they gave us through colonialism and slavery. And today, most black countries are not developed because we have underlying issues. Our culture is a problem. Our political system, our nation, inside the economic foundation and structure of our countries are not okay. The philosophies that we even use to run our country and our educational system are not good. So that's why it is not the skin color that made those countries to be poor. It is the system that was designed. So I told him, you have to reverse that way of thinking. And I believe many African youth have that thinking today, that the more white people, the more development will come. The less of white people, the more the country will be poor. No, we have all it takes. We have the capacity. All human races have the same intellectual capacity. Scientifically, we all have the same intellectual capacity. What makes the difference is how you organize, how you build your culture, how serious you are, and how accountable you are to your people, and how you work as a team to develop your own area of the world. That's the difference. There's nothing about color of the skin. So Africa have no excuse. We have no excuse not to produce our own vaccines. We have no excuse not to build our medical infrastructure. We have no excuse not to build our industries and start depending on the West and start crying like children of the world. We cannot be the babies of the world. So I'll close with that, ladies and gentlemen. We hope that the variant in South Africa is contained. We really hope our African scientists will come together and make sure that this does not spread from that end and around the continent. We know how bad our medical infrastructure are. If this variant spread, it's not going to be good news. So we hope scientists and the rest of the world will come together, because those people that are closing their border, they forget that it doesn't help. So what helps is when people come together and fight this virus. If you isolate a certain group of people, it will eventually spread like Ebola did, and then eventually people will have to pay for it. So the whole world need to come together and help South Africa and see that this variant does not spread faster than it should, and they should be able to contain it. With that, I thank you very much for the day, and I will play our usual closing song, We Are All Liberians.
We are Liberians. Liberia.